welcome back to the channel. Project 7890 is getting a little bit of TLC before the winter. We've sent the forks off for servicing. It's been a few years since got the cartridge fitted, so I thought they deserved a wee bit of a service. I've been getting some feedback through the bars, so there's a few things that I wanted to do was change out the headstock bearings. You've maybe seen a few videos ago. I took them out just to inspect them, and there was a few marks on them. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. There was nothing too bad about it. So I just fitted them back in, re-greased them. But as I said, I've been getting a little bit of feedback through the bars, and I don't know whether it's a side-to-side movement with regard to it just feels something's not quite right, or it could actually be something in the forks. So the forks are way off to have a look with TW Suspension Tech down in Preston. So fingers crossed, there's nothing too serious whether it's just an oil change and refit. With regard to the headstock bearings, I did buy roller bearings from SKF, supplied by a company called Simply Bearing, I think. I'll put a link down below to the parts I've used, so if any of you are considering this conversion, it just gives you an idea where you can go and you can get the right part numbers. They are pretty widely available if you search for them, but there's lots of different manufacturers of bearings, and I'm always cautious and always err on the side of caution and go for a well-known brand, and SKF have been in the past pretty reliable, especially the likes of seal bearings and stuff. With the bearing set, you'll need to get a new seal for the top and bottom, which is almost like a brass plate or brass coloured plate with a rubber edge on it. That fits inside the actual frame once the bearing cups and the races are fully set, and it just gives you an extra bit of a seal. With regard to the sealing of the old set, there was very little rust, water, dirt inside the bearings after I cleaned them last time, so it shows that works. So that's the plan for the next few days, is to get this all changed and stuff. In fact, I'm videoing this after the fact. New bearings and stuff are in. There was a wee bit of a drama with something that happened in the garage, which I'll show you later. Other than that, they went in pretty straightforward. The hardest bit is getting the lower crown race off the steerer tube, or the steering stem, whatever they call it in motorcycle terms. So it's just that bit. It sits flush on top of the crown. It's hard to get something underneath it to pop it off. And I had to resort to a Dremel and a chisel. But it eventually came off. No marks to the crown. It came off eventually. It just took a bit of time. There are tools out there which grab onto it and you screw and it pops it up. But the tool that I have wouldn't fit because of the bump stops on top of the crown. But you'll see that anyway. Okay, we're over at the bike now. It is... Obviously, I'm not going to show you how to take stuff apart because you can see what's going on. But basically, I've put the top crown race in first. These are fairly easy to tap in. The old crown races are obviously... So those are the ball bearing cage races that are in the frame. I don't know if that's focusing there. It's quite hard to see. Just gives you an idea of what's going on there. These are the new races that go in with the roller bearings. Obviously the roller bearings are very different, but you can see how deep the races are now. The easiest way I've found to get these in is just to tap them in, gently get them flush with the top edge, and then use the old crown or the old race, and it fits in there upside down. You can see it's not interference with it, but you can then use that to tap it in and get it flush. So the bottom race, or the new race, is now flush with the old lip. And then when you get the bearing and put it in, you'll see how well it fits. So there's the new bearing going in. You can see it just fits nice and plush. It is absolutely solid. Obviously to be greased up yet, and take it from there. The hardest bit is actually getting the crown race off the bottom of the lower crown. So you can see here it's a bit of a hack job. Apologies. I have no intention to use this again because it's worn. You can see some of the marks. You can get some extreme close up. You can see some of the marks on it there, which is one of the reasons why I want to change it. You can feel them with your nail a little bit. So you can see I've taken the old Dremel to it. So the plan is just to cut a bit of a lip off it here, cut a wee bit of a slot on it and try and split it. And then that way hopefully it'll come off. The thing I've also got to overcome is
dropping the new bearing onto the crown race. So obviously that's got to go down that way. I don't have a hydraulic press or anything, but the plan is to keep the top crown on it to protect the bearing. And I do have a, maybe it's an unconventional thing, but basically this tool here, I can use that to bang that hopefully home. Yeah, it looks like a SpaceX rocket, but it's an X Tools. It's basically a cycling or a bicycle headset kit or a crown remover or a crown placer or whatever you want to say. So hopefully that'll just pop that on. Worst case scenario is I'll take it to my local shop and get them to do it for me. But I'm going to try and just cut this through. I'm just taking chunks away at the minute. It's obviously quite a significant bit of metal, but as I get a wee bit deeper in here, I'll then cut a vertical cut and see if I can just get a wee bit of a chisel in and break it off. But that's the bottom crown is the problem for me. I did have like a splitter thing, and just show you that. This was the original plan, was to use one of these items. Now this is basically designed to go over. It would go underneath the cup, and you tighten it up, and it would squeeze and pop it off. But because you have the bump stops for the steering lock, that's not possible. Another way to do it would be obviously press that out with a press, but I don't have a press. So that's kind of home garage hack, cutting through this, split it, take it off, put a new dust seal on it. These seals came with the bearing kit. They're pretty standard size. I'm trying to see where the old one is. There's an old one here, which does have a part number on it. You can see there's some writing on it, but you can tell it's compressed. Like this one's quite a little bit deeper than this. Yep. So this one's an old one that's been on the bike from new, and then this one here will replace that. And as you can see, both the same size and blah. And that just basically goes underneath the bearing and then takes it from there. But that will be the setup for the lower crown. So that's the bearing and the seal fitted. That will go into the bottom cup. Job, Bob's your uncle. But leave it with me, and I'll keep cutting away at this, and we'll see how we get on. Okay, just another wee thing I was going to show you was the back of the ignition barrel. I don't know what the light's like here, but basically you can see where the wiring goes in. There's a zip tie there, which apparently can cause problems, but that's basically the ignition barrel. But it's this wire here you're more concerned about, is the antenna aerial wiring, which is the antenna. Let me just move this crown back up to the top. So I've mentioned this before. If you're getting immobilizer problems on the bike, it's usually this circle here. This is the antenna. Now this is a 40 quid part. Okay, so it's not that expensive to replace it. However, it is just literally two wires that go into it, and these wires get pinched. Now this is just hanging off here, so you can see here that's the original wire there. You can see how thin it is. It's hard to tell really with the light there, but it is literally just two sheath wires inside that. And then you can see that's the bit of heat shrink that I've put on. So this is the immobilizer bit. I had to do a join in it midway. You can see the wire go down. It's only probably about, I've only probably put about 10, 15 centimeters of tubing over the top of it. And then the original wire comes out there. So it's just to protect it while it's turning and twisting, because obviously the ignition barrel is part of the top crown, so it actually pivots like this. And what happens is sometimes the wire gets nipped in here and things like that. There's you can see that's some sort of protection for the ignition barrel that fits in here and that kind of thing. But these bolts here are not. You kind of got to drill them out and things like that for the ignition barrel. So it takes a wee bit of work. Okay, I've been hacking away at this really well. Oh, it's still hot, but basically you can see I've had to cut off basically a side of it. It's coming from nice and clean. There's more extra from extracting it with one of these, but I'm not too worried about that. I'll be hitting under the seal. Only one word of caution is that's still hot. It's actually cooled down now. See, when you're chipping away at this with a chisel, stay away from windows. Reason being is Okay, just to show you how it's going to go together. Obviously, we've got the lower seal here, and the bearing just goes straight on top. Now, what I've got to be cautious of is when I'm hammering this down, is that bearing is sitting a little bit proud. Cage is sitting a little bit proud, and that's the weak point of the bearing. Now, the original plan was to put something like that, basically the race on top of it, and then push it down, but we'll see how we get on, and I'll bring you back when I've done this. Okay, back after a little bit of hammering. As you can see, bearing is now on. I'll just pack this with grease now. It's gone on fairly easily. Trick was just to put the race on top of it. Doesn't seem to have done it any harm at all. And just give it a good whack. It is a pretty tight interference fit. So whether or not people will stick these in the freezer or whatever, I'm not quite sure. But it's on there now and it's not coming off in a hurry. So I'll get on packing the grease and get it all back together. Okay, that's the first bearing packed with grease. Now to do the top one, and then it's a case of just reassembling it. There's quite a bit of grease, so just remember just to keep packing it all the way around. And also leave a wee bit of grease on top, just so that gravity takes its course, and can let the bearings have a little bit of source of grease over the break-in period, because obviously after you fit this you'll ride for a bit and then check it again for tightness as everything settles in. So I'll go and do the top race and then we'll get back to getting it back together. Okay, we're just back at the bike. Bottom race is in, or crown, or whatever you want to call it. It's a wee bit harder to hammer up from here and try and hold in the old crown or the old race to use as a way of a bit of a drift, but that's it all in. It's just a case of reassembling now. So I'll finish off greasing the bearings and we'll take it from there. Alright, so the trick with these is just make sure they're absolutely oozing with grease. As you can see that, they're well compacted. It's a bit of a messy job, but it needs to be. Give the old hands a wipe and we'll get this one fitted to the bike. Okay, that's everything kind of back together. I've taken the opportunity to put a couple of nice fresh bolts in the top of the clamps, mainly because my old ones are a bit rusty and stuff, and I thought I'd splash out and get some race bolts. Other things to remember is when you're ever working on, you're taking your bars off, always put on a cover over your screen just in case you damage it. And I bungee my handlebars around the front of the bike with obligatory bungee cord. So that's the bearings changed. All the cable routings are back to normal. I'll give in here a bit of a clean, take the opportunity to give the carbon a bit of a wipe, clean the lights, that kind of thing. But the most difficult part of this job was getting the lower race off the bottom crown. I had to resort to a Dremel and a bit of a chisel to try to break it out. No damage to the crown or the steer tube. So happy enough, the bearings are in. I'm expecting these to settle when I first go out for a ride. So I'm expecting to have to take it off and recheck it just to make sure that it hasn't worked its way loose. Because what will happen is the cups will go in so far and then they'll settle in a wee bit more. And it's just something to keep an eye on in the early next few hours when I'm out riding it. That's probably going to be a while. As I said, the forks are away to get serviced. They should be back with us pretty soon. I'll get them refitted. The weather's pretty bad at the moment, so I'm kind of confined to quarters. And I've also got an operation coming up on my foot, or my ankle. So I'll be out of action for a few weeks while that heals. But other than that, the head bearings are in. What's left over is a bit of a mismatch of parts. Obviously, old bearings, old races. That's something which I might actually keep, because that came in quite handy for pushing the top bearing down onto the steerer tube. It was just like a nice wee drift, so I could bang it with something from above. So I might keep that as a wee spare. There's the lower race. It is bent silly because you can see where I've been trying to hack away at it. There's scrap. There's the bottom race, as you can see, quite a significant cut in it to get it off the crown. And there's the top seal. Now, these seals, I would just buy a new set anytime you're doing it. But overall, it's a fairly easy change. The bike should handle a wee bit better, as in it shouldn't be, well, I don't know, I was feeling something through the bars, so I don't know whether it was just maybe notchiness or whether it was something else, but you can feel, because she's got new seals on it, she's a little bit stiff than usual, but the damper's on as well, obviously. But that's her. So it's just a wee bit of tidying up now, a bit of cleaning, and then I'll sum up what has been going on with the bike.
It's been 12 months since I've done my engine conversion. If you haven't seen that engine conversion, click on the link up above and it'll take you to a playlist of about 6 episodes that detail, well, not detail, but show you how I went about putting a new engine in this bike. The bike has done 10,400 miles since the engine was new, so that means about 8,000 miles since I've had it, which in 12 months is pretty average for me. The bike's had 3 oil changes. Each oil change, there's been nothing conclusive within the oil sieves or the oil filter that has got me anything to worry about. I have had the oil analysed at a lab each time because, like many KTM owners, I'm a little bit worried maybe about cam wear and things like that. So I'm just keeping an eye on the metal levels and things within the oil. It's come back pretty clean, says there's nothing to be concerned about, although this time around they did question the viscosity of the oil grade that was used. For your information, I've always used 10W50. I've changed recently to using Motul 10W50 7100, which I believe is a really good oil. I was using Motorex before, but I'm now sticking with Motul just so I can get that consistency as we go forward. The viscosity thing is usually down to 3 things. So oil shears, and when it shears, the molecules break up and therefore it loses its viscosity. It doesn't cling together as much in layman's terms. So that's caused by mechanical. So that's your gears mashing through the oil, your pistons going up and down, your crank spinning, etc., etc. Can also be caused by high temperatures, although I've rolled it out on this engine because this engine runs a lot cooler than my 790. And it also is things like petrol dilution. So if you've got petrol fuel coming down the side of your piston rings due to worn rings or a worn bore, that causes dilution of the oil, reduces the viscosity. So the oil analysis showed there was no petrol and there wasn't very many wear materials in it. However, the viscosity went down. So I put that down to the shearing. I didn't question it with the lab. I said, is that down to the characteristics of the engine? And they came back with a standard answer. Basically, it's either heat, fuel contamination, or shearing within the engine, i.e. the gearbox and stuff. So I think it is maybe the fact that these engines are, I'll say it, ready to race, and therefore the tolerances within them are very, very narrow. So, for example, a Honda engine may have a greater margin of tolerance, whereas the KTM engines are, I believe, to be very, very tight tolerances. Therefore, they need to shear the oil a bit more. That leads me to the conclusion that the more often you change your oil, the better. I'm changing it I'm going half of what the manufacturer recommendation is, which is 9,500 miles or thereabouts. So I'm going to do half of that. So I'm doing 4.5 is my kind of go-to mark. I don't go beyond it. I sometimes go early. So, for example, the last oil change was 4,200, and then before that was 3,200, and that was basically around what I was doing in life. So it was a case of, I've got an event to go to, I wanted fresh oil in, and then I had a bit of a tour. Once I'd done the tour, I changed the oil. So I kind of see what's ahead and plan the oil changes around that. So that's the longest I've gone on the oil on this engine in my ownership. So that's 4,200 miles. I've reset the clock to 4.5. I'll probably do it once it clicks over 4,000 miles. I'll probably do it, or if I'm coming up to a longer tour or something like that, well, I'll maybe chop it in before that, so it may be a little bit less. But that's what I'm planning to do going forward. At the moment, it's not leaving me anything to be concerned with. The bike's been running for a year now. Normal maintenance bits and pieces, the chain and sprockets needs probably changed in the new year, I'll do that before the season starts. That's a pretty easy job. KTM do a nice chain kit for it. So you can either go buy a chain with a chain guide, and it's all just literally take the fit vehicles and pop it up with the new sprockets. So that's something to do. Other stuff I'd like to do with it, I need to get the race shop serviced. So I'll probably do that in the new year, or when the folks come back, I'll send it off and get it done. So that's another wee task I want to get done. And the rest of it will be things like maybe just greasing pivots and things maybe in the swing arm. So that'll be just something which is just a general maintenance type thing. But conclusion from a year of riding it, 10,000 miles of happy miles. It goes like a train. It's had its wee moments with the stalling, which you'll have seen maybe in previous videos, where I've been out and about and the engine has died when I've been going down the gears into a junction. That seems to have gone away a little bit. I don't know if it's a combination of using better fuel, i.e. E5, as much as possible, or whether or not maybe the fuel filter needs changed in the actual fuel pump. Because you think about it, the bike, the chassis is done 42,000 miles now. So that fuel pump's done 42,000. So it's probably due some sort of change or update. I don't know whether it's cheaper to buy the rebuild kit or just buy a used fuel filter, because there's a few of them on eBay. So it may be just a case of just buying a new fuel filter and pop it in, or a new fuel pump as a complete assembly. There's lots of them from damaged bikes and things like that at the breakers yard. So I can't see there being a problem just popping one in, unless it's damaged, of course. Other things that I'm probably going to do, in fact, there's nothing really to do to the bike. It's just in case I want to ride it as much as possible. The brake pads, usual stuff, consumables, that kind of thing will get looked at in the spring. There's a bit of meat left on these, but I'll maybe get the micrometer out and just measure how much there is compared to a new pad. Other than that, just a general clean and tidy up. One problem I did notice on the way back from Ireland, if you've been watching the Irish Photo Rally series, was that when I got to the boat, I went to start the engine, and I'd go rolling, boom. It just wouldn't bite. I think I've got some video of it when I came off the boat. It took about 3 or 4 goes to get it to start it now. I've heard people having problems with that with 890s before not starting. I've also know that that's maybe a symptom of a cam going. But it just happened all of a sudden. So it just happened. It wasn't a gradual thing. So it just happened when I rode to the boat, no problem, from my brother's house on the Saturday afternoon, stopped at the boat, and then went to move the bike. And I moved the bike to the front of the queue where the guy told me to go. And then when I went to start it to get on the boat, it took a wee bit of time to start. So it took about 3 or 4 clicks just to get it. So I don't know, again, is that bad fuel? Because I have been using E10. I was in Ireland because E5 wasn't really available in many places. So I think she probably either needs a dose of E5, battery needed fully charged, or there's something going on. I thought it might have been the regulator, but the regulator seems to be fine. It's charging. The bike's been starting since. So that's the kind of things that I'm looking out for at the moment. It's just temperamental. The 790 unit, when I have a 790 unit, the engine wasn't as temperamental. The engine seemed to run fine every time. Never had any problems with it starting and things like that. So it's probably a combination of, it's a bit of a bits of everything. The fact that it was wet in Ireland, so the bike got a really good soaking for 3 or 4 days. So it could be just a cable that's just maybe got a wee bit damp or whatever. But I'll go through it over the winter, give everything a good clean, and hopefully that'll get rid of any of those symptoms. But I'm putting it down to just either a battery under voltage or something going on with the water and the electrics. But I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. It seems to be running and starting fine now. Yeah, so that's the head bearings done on the bike now. Just waiting for the folks to come back, and then I'll get it built up. Hoping to get out for a ride. I have an operation on my ankle soon, which is going to put me out of action for a few weeks. So thankfully that's coming at the end of October. I expect the weather to be pretty bad enough that I'll not be out riding too much, but I need to recover from that. There's a bit of physio and stuff involved with the operation. I broke my leg a few years ago, and it's now causing me some jips. So they're basically going back in and doing some scrapey stuff, so I can walk a bit better. And other than that, that's me really. I don't know how much I'm going to get done over the winter video wise. I don't know if you can hear it. We're just in the middle of Storm Amy now, which you probably were sick of hearing off that weekend. So it's chucking it down. The weather's not very great. I have no plans to get out on the bike over the next few months. In fact, this side of Christmas. I'm still editing the Ireland trip. I've still got another 2 episodes to edit on that, which is just basically showing you just various bits of Ireland. And then I don't quite know what the plans are. It might be a little bit quiet for a while, but bear with me. I'll come back in the spring. There's nothing really radical to do on the bike, so I may think up some stuff and do some stuff over the winter. Maybe some top tips for 790, 890s. I have had some feedback from some people who wanted me to show them how to fix a side stand switch and things like that. Having never had one go on me, I'd need to break one to test it to see if it works. I've deleted mine for that reason. I thought it's maybe just a vulnerable point, but I might do some stuff like that and see if it's worthwhile. If you're interested, these bikes are getting a bit long in the tooth now, so I'm hoping these videos are proven to be, especially to maybe new owners who are buying into the KTM 790, 890 family and are running their bikes themselves, looking after them. They're at the stage now where the parts seem to be fine. I haven't had a problem getting any parts of late. KTM have obviously ramped up production again. Their suppliers will no doubt be starting to sort of complete their stock lineups and all that kind of stuff. So fingers crossed going forward, the parts are not going to be a problem, given that they've continued the 790 and 890, although I believe a 990 adventure is due soon. I'm expecting that to be probably this time next year at EICMA. The bike will be 7 years old in March, which is pretty old for a bike. But we'll see what happens over the next few months with KTM and see what they bring out. Right, okay folks, that's me for today. I'll let you just get on, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions for me with regard to anything I found with changing the headstock bearings, just drop a comment below. Otherwise, I'm still around. I'll still be keeping an eye on the comments. So if anybody's got any questions about anything over the previous videos, if you've suddenly discovered the channel and you're catching up with some of the videos and you've got any questions, just drop me a comment. I've got the notifications on my YouTube account, so I can read them when I do it. And I haven't really gone away. It's just that it's winter time and there's not much content to put out there. But I'll try and drip feed some stuff on and keep you guys informed about what's going on. But otherwise, it'll be a quiet period. So enjoy the rest of the year, folks. If you can get out, enjoy it. Stay dry, stay safe, and all that. And we'll catch you on the other side. Over and out.